This is going to be a tutorial on how to take the cheap foam pumpkins from Dollar Tree and turn them into something a little bit more amazing with just a little heat and a little paint and of course some teeth and eyeballs. I will give some tips on some alternative things you can use for eyes and teeth if you haven't got anything like that purchased. The pumpkins that I'm using are all from Dollar Tree. The large single pumpkin for $1 or the 3 mini clip pumpkins for $1. I'll give you a close-up view of these little guys and then a close-up view of the bigger one, and then we'll get to work. This is the one that I posted initially on the Facebook group Tim Holtz Addicts, and several people seem to really like him, and a couple asked for a tutorial on him, so that's the main reason why I'm doing this video. This is one of the Tim Holtz creepy eyes from his Ideology collection. I'm not sure if it was from last year or a couple years ago. Like I said, as we go along, I'll give you some alternatives to use if you don't happen to have specific items. And either way, no matter what you have around your house, you should be able to come up with some version that's all yours. This little guy, I love him. You can't help but to love him because he's smiling and he's creepy and he looks so cute. I'll show you how to make the mold. Well, it's not real mold, obviously. It just looks like real pumpkin mold. If you've ever let a pumpkin mold out on your front porch after the holidays, you know what it looks like, and it's pretty icky. This is probably my favorite little guy, though, with his little 3 wonky, wobbly, oogly, googly, wiggly, iggly eyeballs, straight from Walmart. I think you can get like a pack of 100 for just $1 or $2. And his little happy teeth and his moldy spots. I love his moldy spots. This one, I don't know, this is probably the scariest one. It's like if you have that group of friends, there's always like the happy guy or happy girl. Well, I guess that would be this one up here. Just sort of like the, hey, let's go have some fun. You have the one friend that everybody's sort of scared of. You know, that's the one who, when the creepy guy tries to make a move on her, they'll up and go, Sarah, we're not going anywhere. Get away from that man. So you can use almost any type of foam pumpkin to do this with. This is the larger foam pumpkin that you can find usually at Dollar Trees or the dollar store in your areas. They are from China, and they're made horrifically cheap, so that's all the more reason why it's okay to cut them up, melt them, and if you mess it up, you're out $1. As you can see, it has a very strong line here where it has been made in 2 parts and then they've stuck it together. So whenever you are carving, avoid that line. We'll go into more of a detail on how to carve and what to do here in a second. I just wanted to show you what you could do with that one. This is my guy that I made out of that type of pumpkin. Really cute. So cute. Just a few tips in case I don't mention them because I get a little scatterbrained when I'm doing things, is whenever you cut into these bigger pumpkins, they are hollow in the middle. I cut this hole in the bottom just to put a tea light in, and you can see it's like just junky, gunky inside. So I just threw in some green paint. Whenever you're painting the inside, you don't really have to paint all the inside because you can just paint just the background, because if you put in some tea lights and everything, you're only going to be really seeing that part right there. And once you put in a tea light, nobody's going to really be paying that much attention. But if you're one of those people who just really want to be thorough, you just paint away, girl. You go. I might forget to mention, and I have it laying right here, so it's going to remind me, in the dollar store or in Family Dollar or in any other really cheapo store, a lot of times you will find mirrors that are just made out of plastic sheeting. Also, Tim Holtz make I don't know if he still does, but there was a mirror that was adhesive on the back, and I think that's what this was a piece of. But just plastic, and I just break them apart, and if you put them on the inside, you can refract or reflect your tea light in different directions, and it almost makes it look a little spookier, and it gives you more light on the inside from those little chintzy tea lights that you can get for $1 or 2 for $1. I think it's getting that way. Also, if you you might notice on mine, you might see some hot glue strings or some fuzzies left over that aren't glued down. I just leave those. It's Halloween. It's time to get your creep on. Leave them. So again, just a reminder, everything that we do to these little itty bitty pumpkins is exactly the same as you would do for the bigger pumpkin. So nothing's different. I'm just going to do a smaller one because it'll be faster and you can get the idea. Again, these come 3 for $1 from the Dollar Tree. They have the little clippy on them. I just pulled that clippy straight out, and like I just pulled this one out of this one. They're in there like this with a little poke. You just pull it straight out. Don't wiggle it around or you'll make a bigger hole. And unless you are wanting to stick these on a string of lights, you don't want a bigger hole in the bottom. To carve them, you can use anything. You could use your fingernail, you could use a little pokey tool, you could use an X-Acto knife, a small set of tweezers or scissors, pretty much anything. I like to use the X-Acto knife more than anything and my fingernails, but occasionally it comes in handy to use a pair of tweezers to pull out a piece. So I'm just going to carve this one real quick. I do try to avoid this line because this is the line where the cheapo pumpkins are made and stuck together with glue, and as you will melt them, you're going to see that it will just start pulling apart. So when I make my nose, I will usually try to make my nose with the nose on the base of this line. I do try to make my nose really small, and that's another thing too, is whatever you carve it smaller than you want it, because once you add heat, it's going to expand and melt that foam, and you don't want it to be much bigger than you expect it to be. So start off not super tiny small, but just at least a little bit smaller than you expect your holes to be. So I'm probably not going to say a whole lot here and just carve away. You don't want it to go too far deep because you're going to be painting them and you're going to want something for the paint to stick to, but you want enough to leave a cave for everything to go into. I am going to try to make me a tiny little nose, and I'm going to put my blade in on that line. You don't have to. You can see sometimes like right here where I missed that line right here, and you can see on him where the line was up here, so it sort of tried to make it melt on that line anyway. I mean, it turned out okay, but it did leave sort of a weak spot. It's not going to hurt anything. But just to show you how the weak spots do when you apply heat, like here, this was fine, but look at this side. I didn't mind it because to me it just looked like somebody stabbed a butcher knife into him, and it also let more light out. But this is on the bigger pumpkins. You can see where the line is down the side. And on the smaller pumpkins, the line is horizontal around the middle. So I'm going to make a little teeny tiny nose instead of a big nose, because as he melts, that nose will get a little bit bigger. And then I'm just going to try to make another eye pretty close to where the other one is. But hey, it's a Halloween pumpkin and he's going to be all melty and gross, so if he's all wonky and not even, that's okay. That's one of the great things about Halloween. The more cobwebs and strings and goopies and gobblies and wonkies and everything else, the better. If you are wanting to add like the oogly boogly eyes, what does other people call them, Google eyes or woggly eyes? I don't know, I've always called them oogly boogly eyes. The cheapy ones from Walmart. You will want to make a little tiny hole. Because, yeah, unless you're wanting to put like 3 or 4 in a hole. Or like with this guy, where I went on and made a big hole, like this one, it fitted just fine. Still a little bit bigger for the eye, but you can see that one was like really a lot bigger. So I just stuck a little itty bitty eye in the corner, and that's okay too. Do it your way, but that's just some different ideas of why you might not want to make your holes too big or too small, or get an idea of what you're going to put into it before you start cutting out. I say that, and then I realized I haven't made any ideas for this one, so we'll see how he turns out without thinking. Okay, is he going to be happy or is he going to be spooky? I guess I'll have to show you two so we can show you the spooky round mouth too. So this guy, we'll make him one of the happy pumpkins first. So I'm not going to cut any teeth in him because I'm going to put teeth in him. But if you don't have teeth, that's one thing you couldn't do. You know, like when you're carving a jack-o'-lantern, you make the little teeth. You could do that. And then when you go to heat it, just don't heat them as much so that you don't lose your teeth. This guy is going to have like just a regular mouth. And see what I mean by I could just push in with my fingernail. Okay, watch me say that and then it won't let me. Okay, never mind. I guess on this one and some of the other ones I've done it with my fingernail. But you have to have something a little bit sharper to cut through it with. Ah, he's been cantankerous. Okay. And like I said, if you have little kids doing this with them, you do this part. This is an adult craft more than anything. But kids can have a great deal of fun with it. Just don't let them do it alone, because they're also going to have to be using a heat gun. So this is not one you can just give the tools to and say, hey, go make one. You need to be there with them and doing all the creepy, scary parts. Oh, do you see what I did there? I tore my hole, and guess what? That's okay. It's going to turn out just fine. Okay, I'm going to leave that there for just now. If you are planning on adding something besides this little cheapo stem, I'd go on and leave it for now, just so you can not only keep your hole, but if you're going to add clay, you can just add it to the top of this. Obviously, you'll have to use air dry clay or epoxy clay, things that air dry, because you cannot put these, of course, in the oven, or you'll just end up with a little liquidy blob of ooey gooey white. Okay, so that's all the carving that's necessary. That's it. And next round, we'll do some heating up. Okay, so to do the melting, I usually use the Tim Holtz Heat It tool, mostly because it does get really hot, just as hot as an embossing gun, but it doesn't have the blow. You can use an embossing gun, but please keep it back further away than I'm going to keep this one, because you will burn your fingers faster and have less control. But don't hesitate to use it. You could even use a hairdryer. I don't know. I haven't tried it. So if you do and you try it, and let me know in the comments if it works or not. Another thing you could use is actually just an open flame. Make sure if you do, you have some kind of emergency control there, a cup of water or something in case you get some melty foam on you, or in case it gets on fire. But using this, you can keep it back and you can control it off on switch. The best part about me doing this tutorial was it required me to open my new Heat It tool, because I have one of the older white ones, and oh my goodness, does it look like it's been through an apocalypse. So this way I can feel like I'm all fresh and new and have this fun little new heat tool. At some point in life I might show you my old one, but it is embarrassing. So on your Heat It gun, turn it on. The Heat It gun takes a second to heat up. I don't know if you've ever heard Tim Holtz complain about using it for embossing, and that's because it does go a little slower. But you can see it does, yeah, it's a little warm. It's a little warm. So if you don't want to use it, oh, and there is some fumes. So make sure you have some ventilation. For me, I have a fan blowing that blows all the fumes away from me and out toward a window. So don't inhale fumes that are coming off of this pumpkin. Let's see here. Where is my thing? Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'm going to hold him by his little stem. Now this stem, don't get up there, because if you do, that stem's going to start getting hot and it's going to go wonky and start melting. So try to start off. First of all, do the face, because that way you can be more in tune with what your face is doing. I'm hoping I don't mess up because I'm trying to look at the camera at the same time. You can see it's starting to expand. It's starting to get bigger. The foam is starting to pull into itself. It's starting to melt. See, oh, look at that. Look at that goodness melting right there. Can you see it? Melting? Yeah, he's starting to melt. You know, put it in, take it out. Just do it slow. You can start to see the orange plastic starts to melt and wrinkle. So, like I said, at least for me, I do the face first. That way I know I get the face the way I want it. And you don't want to overdo it, because if you overdo it, you're just going to end up with your orange tearing, which is okay too. If it tears a little bit, you're going to paint a lot of it over. And you want it to look a little distraught. You want him to look decomposing. Like for me, this side is starting to get more decomposed, and I think that's why most of my pumpkins you'll see this side, because I'm left-handed. I'm always holding things with my left hand. So I'm gonna try to even this guy out a little bit over here. Give him a little bit melted. See how he's starting to get a little wetty. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Starting to get a creepy melty pumpkin. And then start going to the back a little bit, melting him up. And you don't try to make holes at first. You know how I have the rotting holes? Because sometimes you'll just have an accident. And then you'll wish you hadn't made holes because you've already got more holes coming up. Or if you're like me, you get distracted, you see something, you look up the TV, and next thing you know, you got a big hole. So, I do like the fact that these little ones often start looking like rotting tomatoes instead of just a little miniature pumpkin. But Halloween to me is, I love Christmas, I love all the holidays, but Halloween to me is a little favorite. Okay, so I'm pulling away now a little bit because he's getting a little wonky. You see he's starting to get sideways. You do want to make sure that my bottom stays a little flat because I'm going to want mine to sit up. So he's starting to fall forward right now. So I'm going to try to edge off the back end a little bit so he can have a little bit less weight back here, a little bit more weight. There we go. Now I'm going to want to make me a rotten hole. So I'm going to press. Let's see, where's my rotting hole going to be? Okay, so let's get this a little hotter right here. Just don't want to burn my finger. Let's see, where is our rotting hole going to be? Like I said, don't make a rotting hole until you know you don't have a rotting hole, because you might end up with one you didn't expect. He's getting a little top heavy. Might have to put a little pebble in him in the back to hold him up front. Okay, now I've gotten it melting. You can see how it's sinking down right there. Right there. It's a little warm right now, so I'll give myself a second. But I'm just going to press. And right here, maybe give it a little tear to get it started. Some little pokies. And then you can even, if you want to, you can go in and tear the plastic that's on top, or you don't have to if you don't want it to be torn. I like the torn effect a little bit. Don't do it a whole lot, just a little bit. He's going to have a, here's his face is all sinking in. And if I wanted this more shallow for the teeth, which I might, I don't know, no, maybe I'll just put teeth over here on this side, right here. So if I put teeth over here, let's see if we can see if I can get that even. Oh, it's really bright. Okay, so you can see how my foam is more outward here. So I will probably avoid putting too many teeth right there, but down here I got a little bit more of a dip, so I might put some teeth there. Up here on this end, it's all the way up to the nose. I'm probably not going to put any teeth there. So I just design him as I go. So here's, I might put him some fangs or something right here. Okay, so let's get this rotty hole here going. So you can see I've already got it, it's already pushed in, melted, pushed it in a little bit, broke through the plastic so I could make it more concave. Maybe I'll give him just one more little dash of heat to get it a little bit more melted. And if you think you've over melted, still go ahead and try to paint it and make it. You might be surprised at what you got and you might go, wow, he turned out cooler than I expected. Okay, see how wrinkled and good he gets? And you want that wrinkleness because that's what's going to give it the texture of a rotting pumpkin. Okay, so there's one down. Okay, now I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to give him a round mouth so I can show you how to make the little fangy guy. So here's another one. I'm going to take this out. Like I said, you don't have to. You can just throw it across the room and just keep it. But so on this guy, I'm going to try to do a rounded mouth. And do a little carving here. I'm just going to make a little circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. That's going to be his little mouth. Ta-da! I'm going to dig him out a little bit more because those teeth are going to be down in there. Okay. And let's see, where is he? And of course, this is the last one to pick up. So here's him. I did make his eyes a little bit deeper. Originally, he wasn't going to have any eyes, but I stuck one in there, and then I couldn't get it out. So he has one eye. Should we do round eyes like I did on this guy? Let's do. See if we can get him close to that one. See how close he becomes. See if he becomes his twin, or almost a twin. Oh, almost made that one too big. Definitely don't want it as big as his mouth. Let's see here. But remember how I said that they will get bigger? You can see how much bigger everything is now here. Even the little teeny tiny nose is bigger. Sorry, my lights are so bright. I've got, if you saw how this was all contraption set up to film this, you would probably be giggling, because I've got lights over top, a light from the side, my camera's off to the side, everything's wonky. Oh well, sort of like how I am. Okay, so what should we do? What do we do for a nose with this guy? Let's see here. Oh, he's just got a little hole nose, a little teeny tiny pecky nose, so let's do that. Little pokey hole nose, just like that. Get all the scraps out. And let's clean it up a little bit before I start melting. Swiffer duster to the rescue. There we go. I love the Swiffer duster when I'm crafting. Gets rid of glitter, everything else, and I can always just throw it in the trash and start over. Okay, so this one I concentrated more on the mouth, and as you can see where I concentrate on more on the mouth, then it made the bottom get sunken in more, and the top comes out. I'm going to try, we'll see how it works, focusing more on the top with the heat first, and see if I can sink in that top. Sink in the head first before the bottom. Maybe I'll work on the back first. Before you start to paint, though, decide what you're going to do with the stem. If you're just going to leave the stem as it is, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that, because you're going to be adding moss and things around it too, so this could be just fine. If you wanted it to go a little sideways, just add a little heat, bend it, hold it down. I don't really like a little thinny skin stem. I like them a little bit bigger. So here's a couple options. One, go outside, grab a little stick, stick it in there. The other one is just aluminum foil. I can't really tell on my screen if you can see everything. There we go. That looks a little better on my end anyway. This is just aluminum foil. I put it on a toothpick. You could use air dry clay. I've been messing with stuff, so one of the things I like to use is epoxy sculpt. I use it for a lot of stuff. This is the black color, so you get it just like with resin. If you have ever used resin, you get a part A and a part B, and it's just 1-to-1 mix. In this case, the ones I've got are black, and you just take equal parts, or in my case, because I don't like to measure anything, almost equal parts, and you smishy. It doesn't take it long to start setting up to be a little bit hard. It does take it a little while to completely dry, and in the meantime you can actually shape it or carve it. Once it gets hard, you can carve it out. The colored does leave a stain on your hands. It doesn't last very long. For the aluminum foil, I'm going to stick him there because after you squish it really good, just let it sit just for a few seconds to start hardening up a little bit so it's not so gunky and sticky on your fingers. Once it sits for a little bit, and you can use gloves, obviously. I've just never minded my hands being all grubby. Just set it however you want it, off to the side just for a few seconds. And you do have quite a while you can work with it. So it's something that if you mix it and phone call comes in, you don't want to leave it for an hour. But, you know, you don't have to like work it really, really fast. With the aluminum foil, this is just a scrap piece of aluminum foil. You just squish it up whatever size you want it to be. If you think you're going to make it too big, you can do it in layers. I always just take my toothpick and just hold it in there. Nothing spiffy about it. Don't measure it. If it looks like it's going to be too big, I'll just tear off some of it. And squish, 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 squish. And the thing is too, is like if it's still too big and I don't want to undo it, I can just take some really strong pliers and just squish it even more until where it's super, super tight. If you want it a straight one, you can, or you can start bending it, twisting it. And hey, where it is aluminum foil, if you don't like the shape of it, you can actually almost cut it too. Well, you can cut it, not just almost. I'm flattening out the bottom so it can go on the top. And just keep in mind, you know, you're going to be adding moss around this, you're going to be painting it, so don't expect to make it look perfect. If you want both ends a little flat, just smush it on the table, make it flat, and there you have a new stem. Just that way. And you can either E6000 glue these on. You can hot glue them. I'm not a real hot glue fan. Most times I find with hot glue, things over a period of time, if it's something you're going to keep for a while, they tend to fall apart with hot glue. Unless you used a Gorilla hot glue, which is not too shabby. I've used it and it's stayed together even on wreaths on the door. Here in Idaho, sometimes it gets well over 100 degrees during the summer for a couple weeks, and so hot glue doesn't exactly do well if the sun's shining right on it. You can just stick your toothpick in there, which I should have left it in there before I started because now it's too tight. But if you stick it in there, then break your stick off, and then you can just stick it in there. And that gives it a little extra support, especially on the bigger pumpkins. If you're going to use them in foil, you'll want to do that. Epoxy, you just shape it whatever shape you want. One good thing about epoxy I think is fun is that then you can make the little, I don't know what you call them, the little viney things that come off your pumpkin. So you can make some really stiff ones, just roll it, make a snake in your hands, and you twirl it however you want, and just set it off to dry, and you can glue them on later in whatever shape you want. Or not shape, but once it dries, you know, it'll be in that shape. You can just glue them on. You can break off the end pieces if it's not the way you want it. Down here, make another little one or two here. Scratch this up. Yeah, make it look like a little woody stem. Oh, and by the way, on your bigger pumpkins, not even on your little ones too, if you go to the store and you buy a real pumpkin, say this year, yeah, that pumpkin's going to get old and goopy and you're going to throw it away. Last year, I wanted to see something, and I was like, yay! I took the stem off my pumpkin. I'm going to leave that one all twirly-curly, because I like it like that. Alright, so last year when I went to the store, I bought a pumpkin, and before I threw him away, I pulled off his little stem. I didn't even rub this off, it just came off flat, and now it's like a perfect piece of wood, so I can actually use that on this big guy. Whenever I go to make him, he can have a real pumpkin stem. So that's off of a real pumpkin, and it's just dried over since last Halloween. Alrighty, so let's see here. So I am going to take this one off, just so you can see how it is. It's just a spike. Hey, you can save this for a snowman nose if you wanted to, if you're into more altering stuff for Christmas. Just don't get like me and you end up with baggies of things everywhere and you forget you have them. So mine's going in the trash. Okay, so if I wanted to use this one, I'll just break off this toothpick and stick it in there. And if it doesn't lay quite flat, that's okay too, because we are going to be adding a lot of moss and a lot of goopy stuff. In this case though, where I can see like he's got a little edging there, I am going to get me out some E6000 glue or some hot glue, and I'm going to glue him just a little bit more, and then we'll get to painting. So, okay, so my hot glue gun, that's my favorite, my little green Sure Bonder that has the really fine detail tip, is upstairs, and I'm way too lazy to go get it. But I wanted to show you another idea, is that once you do a little tap here, you can make a vine that you're going to paint and just do some swirlies on, and it gives it some raised up texture, so when you paint that will show up and you can add some highlights to it. So that's just another idea for you, is to just add some little vines on him as you go. You don't have to do this, this is just a little addition. And hey, the stringies from the hot glue, that's just an extra win. Pull them off if you want, I don't, unless they're really in the way. And this guy, where he has a toothpick in him, the hot glue will probably be enough to help hold it on. If I didn't have the toothpick in there, I would definitely be using maybe a little hot glue, but some E6000. So we'll give him another little line over here. Like I said, the detailed gun is probably better, but this is if just a regular glue gun. So I went ahead and took the great big pumpkin and carved him and melted him just a little bit. I did make that mouth really thin, and the eyes were a lot smaller. Seems like these guys do make a bigger impact when you melt them, as far as making the holes bigger. I also did one thing that I said not to do, which was I started too close to here instead of over here. And so I ended up carving close onto one of the joining lines. And you can see what happens when you melt it. It starts splitting there. So I decided, well, hey, what a great place to stick a spider coming out. So I just went on and painted along the edges. And I painted inside the back just yellow. And I got a little bit of black paint on my paintbrush. That's okay, it looks cool that way too. And you can see there's no sense to be super neat about the painting because you're going to be covering a lot of it up. It's just to make sure that you have a shadow line. I also took one of the other smaller pumpkins and started a multi-eyed guy. There's a part of me that's thinking he might need spider legs. I'm not sure. But I thought while I was at it, I would just carve out this little guy. And let's just show you how just using a grill lighter, you can use it to help melt things if you don't have a heat gun. Still highly recommend the heat gun just because that way you don't have an open flame. But this way you can see what... It's a lot faster obviously, so you want to be a little dabby with it instead of like holding it over it. You can hold it at a distance and it will still do a little bit more, but dabby. You see it's going to melt it more, probably give it more of a wrinkledy, horribly look. Look, see, it ate all the way through my nose because I wasn't watching. And that's why you want to be careful. But that's alright, he's salvageable still. Ooh, he's smoking. Teach me to try to look at the camera while doing this. But that way you can see why it's important to be more careful with open flame.